Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited for my conversation today. Would love to have Julia tell us who you are and what you do in the events industry.
Hello, lovely to be on your show. So my name's Julia Danmeri and I'm the founder and CEO of TranslateAble, which is a language agency that's dedicated solely to the events industry. So we provide interpreters, translation, captioning, transcription to the events industry. But before that, I used to be an event organiser. So I spent 20 years in the events industry organising global events, growing a global team and looking after the event ops for, just over 20 years.
Amazing. And today we're talking about careers and career changes and what that looks like. And I think, we're 5 years out from lockdowns, and that was probably one of the biggest disruptions that our industry has had in at least some time. And I know that for myself, like I have had many jobs since then, obviously losing my job in COVID, finding roles that weren't really events just to kind of keep working through those times, and then finding new roles after that, and how the industries that we work in as planners can sometimes be, I've worked a lot in tech, right? So there's a lot of, funding. And so all of a sudden there's a lot of money for jobs, and then, oh, we didn't get that round of funding that we expected, or didn't do as well, or we got bought, or we got acquired, or we're acquiring another company, right? And so there's always those changes. So what is it about, like, why is it that it's so important for you to talk about this, and what is it that, you're thinking people need to know as event planners when they're considering what their career path is going to look like?
It's important for me, I think, because it was actually something that I never, ever thought about. So to me, I kind of very much followed the path, kind of got out of education, got a job, ended up in events, and all I thought about was ops coordinator, ops exec, ops manager, kind of just sticking purely in my ops role, and that's what I was going to do. I never thought about, like you said, what if you got made redundant? What if the industry stops moving for a period of time? Or actually, what if you just want a change? I never thought about any of that. And it wasn't until I actually did think, actually, a change is due, that I realised there was probably so much, if I had that in the back of my mind, that maybe one day I will need a change for whatever reason that may be. There are so many things that I would have done differently from the beginning of my career to have made that change a bit easier, or a lot easier even, depending on how much work you put in. So I think that's what it is. It's kind of making people aware that you might need a change at some point, and just to make sure that you've already started the groundwork, even if you don't think you'll need a change, just to make your own life a bit easier.
Yeah, that's something I always kind of half joke with people. Like, you always have to have a bag packed. You always have to be ready to go, because you don't know, either your organization may decide that it's no longer working out for like all of the reasons I listed, plus other reasons that can come up, or you might decide, hey, there's been a change here, or my life has changed and I have different responsibilities, right? I know, especially in events, there's folks that are like, oh, I'm in a season of life where I cannot be on an airplane every week, and so I need to find something that maybe still in the industry but is not traveling as much, or maybe need to pivot out of the industry, or looking at something that maybe is on the sales side where I'm not traveling as much because I'm in-house working for venues, right? And so understanding that your organization can change, and that can require you to need a change, or be forced into a change, or the other way around, of like your life may change and what your priorities are might change, and it may no longer align to the roles that you thought that you would be going for.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like if you also have that in the back of your mind all the time as well, it might keep your eyes a bit more open to other opportunities that are out there. I think, because, again, for me, because my mindset was pretty strict, it was kind of, I'm in ops, that's it, the end. But actually, I didn't look at really what marketing were doing unless it affected my role. I didn't really look at what sales were doing unless it affected my role. And there were kind of so many things I wished I'd kept my eyes open to a bit more, because it could have been an opportunity earlier on down the line somewhere, or it would be a kind of more knowledge at a later stage if I did want to pivot or do something different.
Right. So what advice would you give to someone who's like in their role right now thinking, I need a change. Like I can't stay here or won't be able to stay here. I need to start thinking about what's next. Like I know for a lot of people that can be very overwhelming. So where would you suggest someone like starts if they that light bulb has gone off and they know that things need to change?
Yeah, I feel like it can be quite overwhelming because there are so many choices out there and it's really hard to kind of pinpoint just one thing you'll do. And I think in events as well, because we cover so many different aspects. So ops as an example, you kind of look after health and safety, you know, a bit about electrics, project managing. There are so many things you can cover. You have lots of options. I found that, and this is probably quite a difficult one to find in the events industry, but having some sort of time where you have a bit of a clear head and can have kind of a bit of a think as to what it is that you enjoy about your role or just what you like in general and what you kind of don't like. So giving yourself a bit of time, I guess, to kind of think about what you want your life to look like and then your likes and dislikes and then kind of everything stemming from there. I guess what you want your life to look like really is the most important thing. And then everything goes from there. I'd say some of the most important things for me as well was the networking aspect of it. I mean, luckily the events industry is so sociable anyway. So kind of your network grows quite naturally. But now in hindsight, I realised that I'd attend networking events to hang out with my friends and have a great time. It was really, really good fun. But actually, it'd be really good to also try and meet a few more new faces. So network a bit more kind of strategically earlier on. I definitely would have done. And then also just speaking to different kinds of people and just hearing about what they do as well. Even people, so my work was exhibition ops, but actually the events industry is huge. You've got
Yeah.
events agencies as well, you've got conference organisers, there are so many kind of different elements to events that you could go into. And I realised that I'd networked within my small kind of types of events that I organise, but there's a whole world out there, corporate events, all sorts, that you could get involved in. So it's networking kind of outside that group as well. So networking, I'd say, is a huge thing. So I really leaned on people that I knew as well to give me insight into their roles, what they do, just to kind of gauge whether that was something I'd want to get into as well. So talking to people also. So once you've kind of identified what you want your life to look like, also then talking to people to see whether the lived experience is what you think it will be and if it will match what it is that you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there. Like, definitely with networking, one, it can be a trap to, especially if you're going to one where you do know a lot of people, where you're only meeting the same people or talking to the same people at every single event. And really, you kind of need to have a bit of a goal of like, I need to connect with a few new people today. Maybe it's 5 people, or also like I know that I will attend events with industry friends and colleagues, and we kind of make it a point to introduce the other person to the people we know, because like we know each other, but they don't necessarily know everyone we know.
Yeah.
And especially at a large conference, like you can really do that. And I think that there really is something to be said about, yes, there are so many different types of roles in this industry, which you don't
Yeah.
realize when you first start out. Like you're in the one that you're in. And I know a lot of people say like they kind of fall into events or they accidentally ended up in events. I very much like wanted to be in events. Like, and I knew that I wanted to do events, but I also had an idea of what events were. And then throughout my career, it was like, oh, there's also people doing this, and there's
Yeah.
also people doing that, and like there's incentive events, there's internal events, there's marketing events, there's conferences, there's trade shows, right? So I
Exactly.
think like even if you are purposeful in the types of roles that you're doing, there's so many other roles that you might not know about until
Yeah.
you kind of expand outside of, a small network of people. And it's also understanding what each of those roles do, right? Like over
Yeah.
time, I've realized like I'm not a producer. Like I do not want to sit in the AV, like behind the AV with my radio and like show calling. Like that is just not my forte. It's not what gets me excited. But then you meet people who are show callers and like that's what they love doing. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to talk to you about a budget. I don't want to talk to you about logistics. And I'm like, yeah, that's where I want to be. Like this is truly where I want to be.
Yeah.
So I think that like having kind of those coffee chats or at events, asking people like, well, wait, what do you mean when you say you're a show caller? What do you mean when you say you're like a deck manager or you work on incentives? Like, ask more questions, right? And kind of
Exactly.
figure out like, what does that actually mean? Because we all know, especially younger folks or folks just starting out in the industry, think it's all the glam, right? Like, thinking it's like just champagne bottles and caviar every night. And
Yeah.
sometimes that is the event, and sometimes that is great, but a lot of it is really just being buried in dirty boxes, right? So
It's like
understanding
the movie
those.
boxes. Yeah.
Right, like understanding the realities of the job too, beyond just the glamorous side that people present or have in their mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of feel like talking to people that, yes, you can find out more about what they do to work out if you want to do it, but also helps you work out whether you don't want to do that
Yes.
as well. And then it's not kind of just that, it's also, even if you don't want to do a role, so learn kind of knowing a little bit more about marketing or a little bit more about sales could kind of help you later on down the line if you wanted to start your own business, for example. So it's even if it's just not working out what you want to do or do want to do, but it's just having that extra bit of knowledge that could push you forward a bit later down the line.
Yeah, I think that's so true of like what is it that, and I think like so many people go into networking expecting like this immediate payoff, like, oh, I'm looking for a job, and so if I go to a networking event and I don't find one job after that networking event, then networking is a waste of time. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
you're planting the seeds, and it takes a long time to plant those seeds and watch that plant grow, because one, people don't want to just be used for
Yeah,
whatever. Like, you can't just be, people know when you're the person who only calls when they need something, right? So you
you
don't want to
do.
be that person.
Definitely.
And you want to also find like I always kind of go into networking with like, okay, well, how can I help the people that I'm meeting here tonight, because I know that then they'll remember me when I say, hey, I do need help, or they think, oh, someone I know needs an event planner, let me talk. Like, I'll message Shannon Noah because I know that's what she does, and she's helped me out in the past, or she's connected me with folks, or she's always talking me up on social, or whatever the case is, right? And I think, if you see it as like an investment and like a long-term thing, you will be successful in it. It's people who go in and are mad that they didn't make a single sale or find a job after one event, right?
And I feel that if you start kind of networking kind of from the start of your career as well, I find it would have been a lot easier then anyway, because you're networking just for the sake of networking. And it's not because you need something at all.
Yeah.
So then that's kind of going to pay off in the long run, and there's less pressure as well, I feel, rather than just kind of out of the blue starting to network and then asking people for things. So I think kind of starting to network very early in your career, even if you don't need to, I think growing your network from the start is definitely useful.
Yeah, and I'm not telling folks that like you need to be at like 2 or 3 networking events a week, right? It's just being intentional. It's being intentional with your follow-ups as well, right? Like, I just had a thing about, I've attended a few events over the last few weeks where like people are like, oh yeah, add me on LinkedIn, or they send the virtual event, they send their LinkedIn invite link and then never accept it. And it's like, okay, well then why did you give this to me? What are we doing? Like, and like LinkedIn is so restrictive, like I can't send you a message unless we're connected. Like, it's just so silly, right? Like, and of course people get busy, but it's like it's a lot of people just let that follow up fall, which like as an event marketer, I'm constantly telling sales not to do that. And so it's frustrating when we're doing it with like things like networking events.
No, definitely, I totally agree. And I kind of feel like kind of that early follow up as well. It's kind of you start off with the networking side of things, but it's then good for kind of people to then just get to know you gradually as well. So kind of from the things that you post as well, people kind of getting to know you. I mean, that's the other thing that I'd also say is kind of being more, if you're looking at kind of pivoting or changing, is just to be more vocal about who you are, what you do and what you can do. And again, doing that from really, really early on in your career, because that's another thing that I kind of found when I switched from ops into running TranslateAble, was that I would sit down and I'd tell people, this is what I'm doing next. And these are people that I'd known for years, and they would sometimes be a little confused. It's because unless they'd worked with me in a country and heard me using my languages, they actually didn't know that I spoke any languages because I never told anyone. So you'll see
Right.
on my LinkedIn even, I would never post on there. I think I had 3 posts in the space of 8 years or something
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, so people never really knew kind of what I did, or that I use languages to organise events or manage contracts and kind of manage suppliers and things like that. So I feel kind of shouting about yourself more, be it on socials or just when you talk to people too, really, really helps because people know you more and then they can kind of link things better to you if you kind of decide to pivot in the future. People understand it more.
Yeah, and it's like it is a delicate balance, but we all need to talk about ourselves more than we think we do, right? Because we're like, well, we posted about that last week, and it's like, yeah, but that person has now seen like 3,000 other posts since then, and like 1,000 Instagram posts, and so what are they doing that? Like, how do you make it sticky, right? And the number of times, and like I joke about this, like my husband's an entrepreneur as well, and he'll get a client who will say, "Oh, can you also do this?" He's like, yeah. He's like, but is this my problem or their problem? Right? It might be a me problem if they don't know I do it, right? And it's the
Yeah,
same for me, like as an event planner, it's like, oh, can you do this? It's like, yeah. And like if you don't know that I can do this, then that's kind of a problem, right? So
yeah,
it's finding that balance and finding ways to make it sticky, and that's why it's like it can't just be a one and done, right? Like it can't just be like a business card. You can't expect like people like with a pile of business cards to be like, oh, I know someone who needs an event planner, so I'm gonna file through my Rolodex. It's like, no, like you need to be kind of staying top of mind for folks, right?
yeah, definitely. So I used to kind of be of the opinion that if I work hard, people will notice and
Yeah.
they'll know what I do. People don't notice
No.
at all. People have got their own thing going on, and they will just kind of take you for what they see, what you say you do as well. So I really feel kind of, yeah, just talking more about what you do, maybe kind of being slightly less humble sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, it's a delicate balance because you also know the people that kind of go overboard. That you're like,
This is it.
okay, right, but I always say like no one's gonna do it for you, right? And so
Exactly.
like you have to be your biggest advocate, whether it's you're an entrepreneur or you're looking for your next role. Like no one is gonna be looking as hard as you are for your next opportunity, and like of course you'll have your cheerleaders and your champions that will do what they can, but they're their own people with the other priorities and other things to worry about. So, I mean, talking about personal branding, I think is also. I remember going to a course. I don't even remember what this event was, but I remember being. It was in university, and I don't know if it was a guest lecture, like how this like guy came into being on stage in front of me, but he was talking about personal branding and
Mhm.
like the things he said just made so much sense, and he had like kind of a three-step process, which like I don't remember all the details, but almost 20 years later, like I remember him telling me personal branding is really important, and he's like, this is why, and this is like what you should be doing. And I feel like people know that it's important, but they don't really know how it's important or like how it'll help them. Like, so what is your like some advice? Like, because I also always say like whether you're working on your personal brand or not, you have a personal brand.
Yeah.
So whether you're consciously putting in the time and effort and crafting that message, that is you developing your personal brand and telling the market what your brand is. And if you're not doing that, the market is going to decide what your brand is, right? And so, what is some advice for someone who's like, okay, I know I need to be posting on LinkedIn, or I know I need to be going to networking events. Like, what advice would you give to someone who's starting out on like a strategic and purposeful personal brand journey?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is actually doing a really good job, being excellent. Because I kind of feel the strongest kind of referral is when somebody else can do it when you're not in. Well, one of the strongest ways of getting kind of business is when someone does it for you when you're not in the room. Kind of says that this person will be really good for the job. So I think the reputation in the industry is excellent. Sorry, if your reputation in the industry is excellent, that really, really helps. But in terms of kind of your own personal branding, I know my partner kind of said to me once that if you don't feel like you're being maybe a little bit irritating, you could potentially post a little bit more. That's what he
Right.
said. And then kind of, I know that looking at, there are a good few people that I follow on LinkedIn who post on a regular basis. And if I sit and think about them, I see a post from them at least once a day. And I don't find it irritating. I actually
Yeah.
like reading about them. I like seeing what they're up to. I don't think there's anyone on LinkedIn that I follow that that I would find annoying. I actually appreciate some of the knowledge that people share on there. So I need to you need to remember that for yourself as
Yeah.
well. If you're not annoyed by other people's posts, then no one's going to be annoyed about yours. And people probably really like hearing about what you do as well. So
Yeah.
don't be scared to share, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's also, starting small, right? Like, and I think, and in the past few years, it's gotten better, I think, on about LinkedIn. Like, for a long time, people had this fear of, like, oh, I have to be posting, like, this really thoughtful thought leadership, like, groundbreaking, change the industry post. And it's like, no, you just need to be giving your perspective. You just need to be reminding people what you're the expert in, right? Like, for so long people were so hung up on, like, if it wasn't a perfect post it didn't belong on LinkedIn. And I think LinkedIn and the community on LinkedIn, at least like the connections I have, are getting better at, no, we're actually being authentic here. And like, of course you always see the ones that you're like, okay, this feels like a little robot-y, or it feels a little inauthentic or disingenuous, but like those people are not going to get the traction of the people who are real about their experiences and their feelings, because people want to know what your opinion is. That's why they're connected to you. That's why they're following you, right?
Yeah, I feel like that, and also kind of what you're up to as well. So it's a combination of the two, your opinion and what you're doing. But I think you were right when you said start small, because again, I kind of didn't post on socials at all before. So for me, what do you post about? It just felt like a lot. But actually, you can just start small, just get used to it and just chip away, even if it's things like you'll comment on a certain number of posts per day until you kind of get used to posting, or you'll repost someone's post. So just kind of doing these little things until you start to get a bit more comfortable. And I think we have got so many tools. I know some people don't like kind of using ChatGPT for posts at all, but we have got so many tools available to us now to kind of create posts for us as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to create the post for you, right? Like, it can be somewhere you go to, like, ideate, like, okay, like, I
Exactly.
here, or refine it, or say like, oh, I need 5 posts about this topic, right? And then still adding like your person, because like people want to read it from you, right? And people are
Yeah.
getting better at determining, like, oh, this was completely written by AI, and you didn't put any of yourself into it. And it's like, I use AI. It helps me draft my show notes for this show, but I also go in and change it because I find it very formal, and I'm like, oh, that's not the way I talk. So I soften it a bit, right? But it just pulls out the main point. Like, it's a good starting point. And you're
Yeah.
so right. Like, I think commenting is huge. Like, now LinkedIn even shows you how many impressions your comments get, which shows
Yeah.
me that LinkedIn is valuing comments, right? Just as much as they're valuing posts, because otherwise why would they tell you? And I personally just set like a 15-minute timer every day. And I don't necessarily worry about the number of posts, because some days I find like there's not as much, and some days there's like so much for me to comment on, but I just set it for 15 minutes and intentionally comment on people's posts, and then it's like, okay, 15 minutes is done, I'm done. And
Mm.
then I'll do my own post and just follow up on my own stuff. And then that way, because I think also it can be a bit like any other social media, can be a bit of a time suck of like, oh, I've spent an hour here and I've done nothing, right? So like, kind of setting a little bit of a timer and like having an intentional moment on it instead of just like scrolling through the content, I think is also really helpful.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And I kind of also feel, with social media as well, I also found that it helped me when I was deciding what to do next, was when you see posts from people. So I'd specifically look at kind of looking at the language industry. So kind of getting a bit of a gauge as to how people were feeling about.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. Like it is, and again, it kind of goes back to like what we keep saying of like it's planting the seeds, it's building that network in a way that's really authentic, in a way that people want to help you because they know that you've referred them things or you engage with their content or you've answered a question when they've needed it. And I like, we've only really talked about, LinkedIn, but there's also so many Slack communities that I found really helpful for kind of building a brand in, being the person in Toronto, right? And hey, you have a question about my city, I've got answers, right? And this is like what I can help you with, or oh, has anyone dealt with this on site? And the Slack channels are a little better because they're more private. Like obviously, you can't go out and blast, and you still have to be careful what you say, but you can be a little bit more honest, or you can send DMs about like, oh, I had this experience with this vendor and it wasn't great, and or here's what I would consider before choosing this vendor, and you can build that trust in a more intimate way, and you're still building your network. Like yes, the like public LinkedIn stuff is great, but also those conversations that you're going to have one-on-one or one to a smaller group are also going to help you out. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And I know like there's sometimes that I'll see something and I'll message the person privately and be like, "Oh, hey, like I had this experience," or like here's why this tool didn't really work for me, like, consider it, take that consideration, but like not necessarily putting it on like blasting out negative comments, but just being more honest and one-on-one, and then like people again will know you, and you'll start to build that reputation. So well, this has been amazing, thank you so much. We're coming up to time. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with on, if someone is thinking, oh, I think it's time for a change, like what would you tell them, and then where can we find you and connect with you online? Amazing, thanks so much for being here.